So I need to get myself a handy.
Ooh, I'll turn around.
Let's see. All right, for those that are watching, this is where the sausage gets made, as they say. So we're here live on YouTube. This is where we do our pre-edit show. A few people are allowed to always come in and listen live if you want to do that.
It's
So
like sound check.
Welcome. It's like sound check. I just make sure everything's good and volumes are off, and we'll be ready to go in like 20 seconds. And this is where we make it, and then we edit it down, and then we go make a podcast for you guys.
What is it? Hey,
everybody, welcome to the Dukes of Blather. I'm Sam, that's Wick. As always, the show is brought to you by the fine folks of Avinicus Clinic in Woodstock, Georgia. They offer hope to patients with major depressive disorders, postpartum depression, bipolar depression, OCD, PTSD, and also severe anxiety. Severe depression takes a huge toll on your life. On ketamine therapy offers a chance to find hope again. Many patients have tried numerous oral medications. I'm getting tied up here, but have found little to no relief, as well as difficult to tolerate side effects. Ketamine treatment is highly effective and safe. It's time to get off harmful medications and start living your life again. If you're in pain, get help from the Avinicus Clinic in Woodstock, Georgia. And to do that, you can get more information on if this treatment is right for you at 770-850-1042. Tell them the Dukes of Blather sent you. I'll have to go back and put an edited version there that sounds way better. Wick, how are you doing this fine night, sir?
I took some ketamine earlier, so things are about to get bonkers.
Things are about to get really hot.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? I've luckily never had to use it. I know I've done my own research before we did this ad. This company is owned by someone that I know and trust greatly, who has a medical degree and has a doctorate.
Yeah, it's a whole different ball game.
Yep. And so I did my own research on it, and quite interesting. I suggest if you're going through those symptoms to do that yourself. Always research things that are pushed upon you in ads and commercials, and that's ours. So anyway, Wick, you're doing well, I assume, since you're ketamine out.
Oh yeah, actually, I lied about the ketamine.
Yeah,
I dropped acid.
This is going to be amazing. Did you ever see that Tenacious D movie? I'm not even a Tenacious D person. Did you watch the Tenacious D movie?
No.
Okay, it's Pick a Destiny or something, and I'm not even a Tenacious D guy. I do like Jack Black. I'm just their acoustic metal stuff is annoying. But they did a movie, and there's one where he drops acid, and it's showing the movie is somewhat funny. I caught it on HBO. But the funniest part about that movie is that he's tripping on acid, and as he's doing it, it's showing what he's seeing and what he's really doing. And he's like swimming and taking this like ride with the bear, and this bear has come out of the woods and like given him, this journey to go on, and he's tripping, but then it would flash back to what he's really doing, which is hugging a tree. And it was really, really funny. But anyway, that's what I was thinking about with the acids, like what people are going through and what's really happening are two completely different stories. But nobody's on acid as far as I know.
No,
I was just telling Wick, speaking of acid being on it, told Wick, I've jumped into Doctor Who against my wife's wishes. She's none too happy about this. And I thought it was a children's show. I was just telling Wick, I decided to give it a try. I'm always looking for stuff to binge, and I am not a science fiction person, believe that or not. I'm really not. And one of the things I hate the most, which is odd, is time travel and people going back in time. And I always hate it. Like movies like Groundhog Day, I won't even watch. I watched it once. It was a nightmare. I don't like the reliving over and over type thing.
Ned Ryerson?
I couldn't even tell you like what happens in that movie other than every day he wakes up, it's the same. And it just drives me crazy. It absolutely drives me insane. So I don't like movies like that, but I've tripped into Doctor Who and I don't know how. My wife's nieces and nephews watch it and they're young. They're young. But my demographic has always been 18 to 34. And really, truly, probably 14 to 24 is really my demographic. I love CW shows. You know, we went out to dinner with a friend and he was talking about these shows that he likes, you know, Blacklist or, you know, all these really like adult shows, you know, CSI this or and he's like, and I'm like, you know what's really good? And he's like, what? And I was like, you know, Supernatural. Me and Emily, my wife, are watching that. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. You know what else is good? He's like, what? And I'm like, you know, I don't know what I said. It was like Vampire Diaries or something stupid. And my man goes, so pretty much anything that's in the female demographic from like 14 to 24. And it made me laugh so hard because we got in the car later and my wife's like, he nailed you so much. But I do. I don't know what it is. I love that stuff. I don't know. Like I like CW shows. It's sad. And then Doctor Who, I thought it was a children's show. I don't think that it really is. But, you know, I'm sure that it's I think it's their PBS, like main like PBS television show. It's been 50 years it's been on air. I mean, it's really, really crazy. 50 years.
That's insane.
That's insane, dude. So there's something to it where I'm like, you know, I really do. I want to give this a try because it's always on the binge list, you know, and I'm always jumping around to things that I said, you know, I don't understand this TARDIS thing and sonic screwdrivers and all that. And at first, let me say this to anyone who's thinking about jumping into, because I'm sure there are people just thirsting for Doctor Who right now and just scared to do it. So let me put you at ease. I started watching it and I was like, I don't understand anything going on. I don't understand it. I started because what happened when they ran it for like, I guess like 40 years or something, and then they took a break and then they rebooted it. So I'm like, I'm not going to watch that old 70s stuff. I mean, you know, special effects are already bad enough on TV. I'm not going to go back and try to watch something from the 70s and think that I'm going to get these great special effects. So it's like, I'm going to start with the current one, which is like, God, maybe 2000, maybe somewhere around there. So I did that. And I was completely confused. I didn't understand anything going on. And I found this little guide and I just kept watching it because I did something about it I did enjoy, but I couldn't put my finger on it. And I was confused a lot, but I liked it. And finally I came across, and I advise anybody to do this. If you're into a show that you want to binge, what I have found is if you go on Google and you type in whatchamacallit skip watch, okay, which are the episodes that are main storyline episodes, because you know this better than anybody. Like now, shows do a monster of the week, quote unquote. It's not always a monster, but episode of the week, and then they have a main storyline, and they kind of bounce around. They kind of keep that storyline right going underneath as they're bouncing standalone episodes. And I was like, all right, I'm going to watch only what's essential to the main storyline. And when I did that, I really freaking enjoyed the show, man. I really did. And I'm like, you know what? I like Doctor Who. And so I've been watching the essential episodes, which is only like, the cool thing about it is, you know, I've been able to zoom through like 8 seasons in no time because basically I only watch like maybe 12 episodes a season when they have like 20 something. So I'm only watching the essential stuff. So by the time I've coming down, I'm like only, I think it's 12 seasons right now of the reboot. So I'm like at season like 10 right now.
So it's kind of like the X-Files model where there's a running storyline that they don't touch on.
That's what I did with X-Files. I had to do that with X-Files because I was in and I was out. I was in, I was out. And I found a skip watch guide for X-Files. And it was like, and this is what was cool about the X-Files one. It said, if you want to do the supernatural path of like weird, creepy things that aren't alien, these are the episodes to follow. If you want to do the main storyline, these are the episodes to do. And it was like, if you want to, it had like 3 or 4 paths you could take in X-Files, which I thought was actually really cool.
Yeah, that is very unique.
I can't remember all the paths you could take, but it was like, watch this episode, then you would skip like 3 or 4 and watch this one. So I did the main storyline. And although I thought it was really well done, aliens kind of bore me. And so the alien thing got old after a while. And I found myself actually really liking the standalone Monster of the Week episodes. You know,
I did
there's like
too. Yeah.
some
Or the
creepy lizard
X-Files.
guy, or I think some of their best episodes were the Monster of the Week episodes.
Yeah, like the one that lived in the toilets. Ugh.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah, or the one where that had the family. I can't remember what it was called, but it was actually, I think it was banned. I think Fox didn't even show it because it had a lot of like violence, and I think it was where they were burying their babies in the backyard or something like that. I can't remember what it was called, but I'm sure if you're an X-Files fan, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But yeah, so I do that with almost every show that has a ton of seasons, just because I feel like it helps me get through it. I did that. I'm a big Supernatural fan. I I can't explain it. It is my favorite show of all time. It falls in the demographic of 14 to 24, but I love the show, and it just ended. And that's how I had to do it. Like so this is what happened with that. I started watching that, and I liked every episode. And then my wife was like, we should try to watch it. She always tries. And then, she's just like, I don't know. It's all the little stupid stuff in it and whatever. So I found this guide, which is, I stopped watching it like after like season 5, and I got away from it. And I was like, I got to go back, and time passed. And I was like, I don't really remember everything. So I went back and I started watching the essential episodes of Supernatural, which were the main storyline, which are actually has a lot to do with the revelations, God, the devil, Michael, the archangel, all this really deep stuff. And I started doing that, and I was like, you know what? This really explains it well. So I went back to my wife and I was like, you know what? I think we need to watch this main story skip guide. She's like, all right, I'll give it a try. So we did. She was hooked. She was like, this is great. So she watched years and years of that with me. So those skip watch, if you're in a show that you want to binge, always look for a skip watch. And kind of see if you like the main storyline first, and then kind of skip those standalones. Sometimes those standalone episodes screw you. But anyway, I've gotten into Doctor. So that's where I am. Do you binge anything? Are you binging any shows right now?
No, nothing at the moment. I need a new show.
Doctor Who's really good, man. Supernatural's really good, man. Depends on what
Doctor Who's. I've been flirting with watching that.
I'll send you a link of it. It's free on. Do you have HBO Max?
Yeah,
HBO Max. It's all of it's free completely. I'll send you the skip watch guide. I would start it with the skip watch guide. Just watch the essential ones, and you'll kind of like, you'll get the main storyline. And sometimes it's dumb, dude. I'm not gonna lie. It's not like it's, but there are episodes, like, the funny thing is, I told my wife, I was like, there are episodes that are brilliant. There are storylines that are brilliant in this, and I see why people are hooked. I can see why it's been so popular for so long. But anyway, Doctor Who is basically an alien who's a time lord who goes through the timeline of life, of history, of the universe, and fixes things that are messed up, or corrects things.
And that doesn't cause like a ripple effect?
It can. I mean, there's a lot of that too, where he does one thing and it affects something else and all this other stuff. But it's cool. And there's a lot of people that are Doctor Who fans, man. I'm with you. Join together. All right. So anyway, we got that going. We got vaccines going.
What was the show in the 80s? There was a time travel show, the American show. Scott Bakula. Quantum Leap, yeah.
Yeah, Quantum Leap's amazing. Yeah. Quantum Leap's amazing. I'm just not a big sci-fi guy. The older I've gotten, the more I've given. I think the older I've gotten, Wick, I've enjoyed the aspect and the idea of like this journey of, like, it sounds dumb, but like this idea that there's an undiscovered endless mass of space out there that people are just discovering weird things that you would never imagine in your wildest dreams. And I used to hate that. God, I used to hate it. The older I get, though, this fantasy about this journey that, you know, it's starting to appeal to me the older I get. And I don't know why I'm a late bloomer on that, but I like the idea of this undiscovered territory and people traveling through it. And I don't know, it's a lot like pirates, you know what I mean? Where you're just like out there and you don't know what's coming next. And I guess the older you get, you kind of fall into certain things. But yeah, the older I've gotten, man, I've gotten more into that kind of stuff. I don't know why. I watched Battlestar Galactica. I thought it was great.
Have you seen 2001?
Yeah, that one's really good.
Yeah.
But enough of all that. I mean, you know, hey, it's just entertainment. But I started talking about Doctor Who to Wick, and I was like, yeah, hold on, let's do this on the show. We got vaccines, we got all kinds of stuff to talk about, impeachments. We don't want to spend too much time on that impeachment stuff. Has the impeachment actually happened? Do you know?
He has been, impeached.
I mean, is it officially he's got to go? Or is that just is it just the House?
It has to go to the Senate, and the trial doesn't seem like it's going to begin until after the inauguration.
After we talked last week, we had a really good show last week. I got a lot of good feedback on it. Do you feel like now? I mean, I don't remember exactly what your stance was last week. I mean, do you think this is necessary to go through all this, or you think we should just ride this thing out?
I would endorse more the idea of a joint chamber censure. If you want to put it on record that this happened.
But why are they doing this? I mean, I think you have an idea. Let me ask you, why do you think they're doing this? I mean, 3 days. We got 3 days.
For history.
See, I think they're doing it to keep him from running again.
That's a possibility, but I think mostly it's a reaction to let's put this on the books. Let's not gloss over that it happened. And one of the benefits of that is he can't run again. He doesn't get his pension. He doesn't get his travel expenses. Doesn't get Secret Service.
Would they do better to hold off and wait until he's out of office?
Well, that's what's going to happen.
I mean, if they really want it, yeah. But I mean, like, if they really want it, aren't they giving them an opportunity? Can you pardon yourself? Are they giving an opportunity to do that?
That's a very murky area, from what I understand.
Yeah.
That it doesn't really say that you can't.
Yeah. But if he's out of office,
if he's out of office, he can't. No.
Yeah, that's why I don't understand why they're trying to do it now. To me, it's grandstanding at this point. Like, it's just, you can't. Are we really are we doing a trial without defense at this point? Because if we're doing a trial with defense, if we're really allowing him to defend himself, we're not doing this in 3 days. There's no way.
It's gonna be drawn out.
But I mean, but at that point, to me, it's kind of like he's out of office on the 20th. To me, I just would have waited. I would have waited. I would have done it as him as a citizen instead of as the president. I just think that you're going to try to rush this now.
I think a joint
grandstanding,
joint chamber censure would have put it on the books. You won't be able to gloss this over in history that this happened, that they believed he incited an insurrection. But this is where we are. We're getting another second impeachment.
Is there some truth to the fact in your mind, because you're a little bit more liberal than I am, or maybe not, but I find you to be a balanced thinker on these things. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know what the real end result point of any of this really kind of comes down to. Do you really think that this heals anything if they run them through the ringer? I mean, do you think that are you going to get Republicans to really feel like we're really trying to close the gap on everything that's been going on if you're going to try to impeach the president that's a Republican?
I think another dimension of this is they're trying to fracture the GOP.
Yeah, but isn't it always done? Isn't it already done? I mean, isn't the
I
damage there?
think so. Yeah, I think so.
I mean, it's almost like you're really kicking. To me, you're kicking when they're down. And listen, there's a lot of people that are supportive of that. And we're going to talk about it as we talk about Parler and free speech and everything going on with that.
Mm.
But it seems like you're kicking them when they're down. They've got not a lot left. I wonder if you're doing this, you actually embolden the Trump Republicans to harden their stance.
I think that's certainly a possibility. I think McConnell welcomes it, though. I think they are looking. The GOP is looking for a way to purge themselves of
Problem.
Trumpism. Yeah,
maybe they are. I think it's a good thing.
They're probably talking behind behind closed doors, the House and the Senate leadership.
Yeah,
about what's the best plan here.
Well, we'll see what happens. I mean, we got 3 days left. To me, and I don't think you're giving them much of a defense if you're going to try to do this by the 20th, which obviously they're not going to. You've got to get ready for, your victory march, basically.
Yeah,
I mean, I hear all these performers are going to be performing, which I think is really odd. Which I think happens for everyone. I don't know.
Yeah, it does.
Trump had artists perform. I don't know. Did Kid Rock show up to the inauguration?
Kid Rock and
I don't know.
Kid Rock.
Maybe he did. But it seems like they're going to make it a party atmosphere. That's cool. If anybody knows me, I like a good party, whatever. But I think you got to focus on the change of the guard. I've said it before. If he wants to leave, let him go. He doesn't need to be there. It's not his day. And certainly if he wants to take his ball and go home, let him take his ball and go home. That's how I feel. So whatever. I think it's grandstanding at this point. I think they should just worry about what's in the future, how they're going to handle this. We've got a COVID situation. We've got vaccines. Georgia's 48th in vaccines.
Of course.
Terrible. I'm sure they pumped that up a little bit because they know the numbers were looking bad. And if, listen, I know that you have to give them to the people that need it, but if people want it, give it to them. You know what I mean? Like quit holding out for people that are not coming to get them. So if you got, 1 million shots of the vaccine in a certain state and, you're saving those for all of the elderly and all this, and these people are not coming to get the shots, then give it to somebody.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I think is part of the problem in the state is that they go, hey, we got all these vaccines. We're going to hold them off until, these people show up and want them. Well, what if they don't freaking want them? And what if Wick wants it? Or what if my wife, who's an educator, wants it before they start school back? I mean, let people, just distribute them and let people show up who want them. If the old people don't want it, they don't believe it. Like, listen, my parents, I don't know if they're going to get one or not. I can't keep them at home. I mean, they're out gallivanting. I mean, they're like drunken pirates on the local Walmart. I can't keep them out of Walmart. Can't keep them out of Kroger. I mean, they're gallivanting up to Chick-fil-A. I mean, it's like, okay, I mean, whatever happens. You're taking your own life in your hands. I mean, this is a serious thing. I mean, I know people that are in the hospital for it. Like,
I know what, in Piedmont, Fayette. When it first happened, there was like 16 cases and people were aghast and alarmed. And now there's like 131 cases and nobody says a word.
It's weird. It's just weird. And, I can't keep my parents at home. So thinking that they're going to get a shot is not going to happen. But if my wife wants one and she's in her 40s, then let her have it. If she's an educator, she might have to go back to school and deal with it. And she wants school to open back up. She wants to go back to a brick and mortar school. She doesn't like the online stuff. She's not sure it's working. I'm not either. Not for young kids anyway. For the older kids,
not
probably
at all.
Fine. But we're doing a lot of blowing off right now in education. It's like, well, I'll just get them in. Right now, they're just saying, hey, my kids just have to show their faces when the school class starts. And they're there for the entire day, whether they clock out or not. I have a kid with high functioning autism. We've talked about before. He's terrible on he doesn't like the computer stuff. He just doesn't want to do it. Now I can fight him and we can both be crying in an hour because we're both just emotionally exhausted. But the truth of the matter is that he clocks in, he shows his face, and then he's gone because they allow him to do that. And I don't understand how we're educating anybody with that. We're not doing anything by saying, hey, my wife's classes, they just have to show up and then they're counted there for the day. Nobody's missed any school.
And then they're responsible for their own work, and
Yeah, and it's just like,
not for young
God.
kids.
So for her, she's like, listen, I like being in the classroom. I feel like I'm interacting with the kids in the classroom. That's my job. And she has asthma, and it's like, hey, you know what? Get the vaccine. But if the state's going to hold those back but you're too young and all this other stuff, we're not ready for your shipment yet. People want to get it.
Well,
that's why it's 48th in the country.
If the old folks don't want them, pass them out.
Pass them out. Let them listen. You know what? Old people, you have a week to come get your shot. I'll give you 2 weeks to come get it. If you don't come get it, we're going to pass them out to people who want them. You know what I mean? Old people can find their way there.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's going on. We've got the impeachment. You know what's something else too that I thought was really interesting, Wick? I don't know a lot about these Proud Boys that have a lot to do with this Capitol riot. Which they're calling is this considered a white supremacist type of group?
That's my understanding. Yeah.
Do you know the head of them? The head of that group is as Afro-Cuban.
No, I did not realize that.
He is, yeah. The head of Proud Boys is an Afro-Cuban. That's his description of his race, which is Black Cuban. And I was like, okay, wait a minute. How do you have a white supremacist group with the head of the group not being white? I think that's something I need to dig into. I was just wondering whether or not you knew that.
No, I did not realize that.
Yeah, it's not a catch. I just was asking. But I think that's weird. And also, before we get on, because one thing that we wanted to talk about tonight, or one thing I want to talk about tonight, I'm going to give you room because you may want to talk about something too. But we're going to talk about Parler. We're going to talk about freedom of speech. We're going to talk about the big tech, people feeling like they're not being heard, and what's going on with Facebook, and are they censoring, and Twitter and all this other stuff. We're going to talk a little bit about that. But in my research, I always like to kind of tackle like what's like trending, on social media and whatnot. And I was going to ask you if you know anything about these sea shanties. Have you seen this sea shanty thing trending?
Sea shanty? No.
Okay, a sea shanty, right? Basically, think about pirates.
Right.
Pirates that sing a song. Now, I don't know the definition of sea shanty. This is what I understand a sea shanty to be. A song that has a rhythmic pattern that keeps everybody like on a ship working.
It's kind of like a drinking song.
It's a drinking song, but I think it's more like, think about like the drummers in the Civil War or the Revolution, which kept a cadence so that everybody was moving at the same pace. I think sea shanties were songs that were bar songs, drinking songs that were taken onto pirate ships, okay? And they would sing these songs together. And I think it was a cadence thing where there was a form of rhythm and tempo that moved everybody on the ship at the same pace, okay? Because everybody was singing this song and they're all moving, and there's certain things that somebody would say and the crew answers back and da-da-da-da-da. This has become like a big deal to millennials. And they're hooked on sea shanties now. And so all these people are going on TikTok, and I don't own TikTok, okay? I'm a Generation Xer. I'm a little behind. I don't own TikTok because I don't see anything really great come from TikTok. Most of it seems very childish and immature. But like the I don't understand the I'm really showing that I'm out of touch. But the Fleetwood Mac song and people drinking cranberry juice. This was something that people were doing. Did you see any of this? Am I talking like, do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
Okay.
So Fleetwood Mac and cranberry juice.
It's a Fleetwood Mac song. Thunder. I can't remember the name of the song, which is sad because I love Fleetwood Mac. I'm a big Fleetwood Mac fan, but Thunder always happens when it's raining. Da-da-da-da. Lovers always love you when you're playing or whatever. That song plays and people drink cranberry juice on TikTok, and that became a phase and a big hit. And I don't get it. I don't understand you. I don't know if somebody had done
because
this.
I know this video. It's the dude that selfied himself on a skateboard drinking cranberry juice.
Yeah.
It
And
like
so now
became,
everybody's doing it. You know
and it's like
what? Let me just, I'm going to just say something. When somebody does something really cute on social media, like on your TikToks and your YouTubes and all that stuff, you don't want to go out and try to copy it. Just let that dude be the dude who did it and move on to something cool.
yeah.
It's ridiculous that there's 150,000 people that are repeating that over and over again in different circumstances. I'm mowing my yard and here comes Fleetwood Mac and I'm drinking cranberry. What the fuck? What are you doing? Like, come up with something. That, so I'm gonna. I'm
People aren't
frustrated.
capable of that. Most people
I'm frustrated.
doing
I'm
something
frustrated.
original.
Listen, sea shanties. You guys are into sea shanties. What the fuck is wrong with you? There's nothing wrong with sea shanties, but it's like me and my wife were revisiting the '90s a little bit, 2000s, and we were watching videos, and we had Missy Elliott on, who was huge in the 2000s, right? Missy Elliott, I think she's a brilliant. I always thought she was brilliant. I'm a hard rocker. I rock out. That's my thing.
Missy Elliott's great.
Missy Elliott is amazing. Okay, this is from a guy who's a rocker. I love Missy Elliott. Missy Elliott performs at the Super Bowl, and you people light up Twitter and everywhere else about how this new artist is amazing, and or how she stole somebody's mix. No, somebody stole her mix from 20 years ago. Wick, I don't understand this. You know, when I was 20 something years old, when I was 30 years old,
It's because nobody listens to the radio anymore.
listen, when I was 30 fucking years old and the Rolling Stones played the Super Bowl, I didn't sit there and go, this is a great new band, because you know what? I knew who the fuck they were. I listened to something beyond 5 years ago. And now you're listening to the sea shanties. What? I don't know where we
because people don't listen to radio. There's no network television viewership anymore that informs people of, when there's a media movement to promote something.
I would rather you go bang two rocks together and film yourself in a rhythmic pattern than sing a fucking sea shanty from 1827. I don't understand it. And you guys TikTok yourself. You millennials, let me just tell you, I'm going to go off. Usually I defend you and I give you a little bit of credit. I'm not going to do it here because you're the most pretentious, pompous bunch of punks on the planet. Here's why. Because you don't think you'll ever get old, and you don't think anybody knows anything about taste. You don't think anybody has any experience that's bigger than yours, and you're in your small, closed-in closet of life. Everybody's so stupid and you're so smart, yet you're running around singing sea shanties and doing Fleetwood Mac cranberry shots. You got to give me a break. You got to have something better than that. I didn't sit there and have Janet Jackson play the Super Bowl or the Grammys or whatever and be like, man, this new group's amazing, because I knew who she was. What is it about millennials where they can't get past the age of 10? Like, what happened? Do you ever
There's
wonder?
no record stores anymore. They have, then they need to be more adventurous on Spotify. Every bit of music ever recorded, except for like Garth Brooks, is on Spotify.
But if it was older than when they were 10 or 12 years old, then it's just too old and it's stupid. And I find that amazingly,
See, I have the other problem.
Ridiculously stupid.
I have the other problem. I find myself going back to music in the past that I didn't familiarize myself with. I should spend more time with new music.
Yeah, I mean, what new music is there? I mean, because of sea shanties. I don't.
There's a lot of stuff. It just doesn't.
You guys were smart enough to go back and find. I guarantee you, these people on TikTok who did the Fleetwood Mac cranberry juice thing, they don't know who Fleetwood Mac is for the most part. They just, that somebody played that song, and by God, thankfully somebody went and found that song and was like, I don't know what that song is, Thunder, Lightning, and they have no idea about Fleetwood Mac's catalog. And I'm not saying that you guys aren't smart or anything like that, but it's so ridiculous to me to get freaking preached at by people who have the expanded universe of a fleet
at their fingertips.
But I mean, like how are these our children? I mean, I don't understand what happened. Like, did nobody ever put another song on that was past 2010? It absolutely blows my mind that we're at sea shanties instead of you guys picking up a fucking instrument and learning how to play it. They have music stores going out of business. They have music stores going out of business. They have all of these industries around the musical industry, whether it's music stores or vocal lessons. You know what y'all are learning to do? You're learning to like dance or whatever. I don't understand what I don't even think you guys dance.
Go back. Go on YouTube, type in David Bowie, and have your mind blown. There is nobody doing anything that forward at this time that he did in the 70s.
I don't know. I asked my wife, I said, do you think, because dance music's, I just don't think they have a good time. I'm sorry. I don't think millennials have a good time because like I said, we're listening to Missy Elliott and all that stuff, kind of reliving in the club days. Because back in 2000, when a lot of you were being conceived, probably before that, you were probably about 10. Okay. We went to things called clubs and we met people. Sometimes we slept one night with them. Sometimes we stayed a couple of years with them, and sometimes we married them. It was a good time had by all. Okay. People would go, and of course I'm teasing, but that did not happen all the time. But they would go. It was a social gathering, right? People would release steam. They would go in there and, Usher be playing, dun, 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 and everybody's dancing and doing their thing, and they're sweating and they're having a great time and they're drinking. And sometimes you had to find a way to get home. And we did things off the computer. We didn't really even care about Facebook. Facebook was something we looked at like once a day. There has to, I asked my wife, I said, do you think if this music was played now? And nobody told him, nobody said that an artist like Missy Elliott, let's say, nobody told them that this is somebody from 2000. They told them this is the brand new stuff. They would love it. They would love it. But instead, they don't do anything. They don't socialize. They don't dance. They don't do anything. Everything's computerized. Everything's digital. And then, you get things like sea shanties. Where the fuck do you go to hear sea shanties to the point where you're like, I've got to find my own. I've got to sing a sea shanty and record myself. This is where we are in your entertainment. You're 30 something years old and you're doing sea shanties. Jump a pirate ship, my man. I mean, what are you doing? Pick up an instrument and learn how to play freaking guitar. You learn 4 chords, you can play almost anything. Pick up a drum set, beat on it for a little bit. I mean, you would be amazed at the release and relief you get from that and how cool chicks think you are. Chicks love a guy in a band. Let me just tell you. If you want to, I just don't understand this. If you want to make friends and influence people, be a musician. And I don't mean the guy who presses, I'm not talking about the guy who presses buttons and it sounds like you're dragging a bumper down the street. I'm talking about real rhythmic music. And that includes electronic music, if you can do that. But it's amazing to me that sea shanties are a thing and everybody thinks it's adorable and cute. And to me, it's so confusing.
Or at least if you want to be influenced by that, go back and incorporate that into something new. Well, like the Rolling Stones did with the blues.
Well, it's like this band from Michigan. What's their name? Greta Van Susteren.
Yeah, they're just Led Zeppelin.
They're Led Zeppelin. Everybody's like, we needed this. This is the music of our generation. No, it was the music of the 70s.
It was, it's called Led Zeppelin 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's not the music of your
generation. Yeah. I like how they've gone back to just basic instruments and rocking out. Like, no, it's basically an exact carbon copy of a band called Led Zeppelin who has like 12 albums.
Yeah, and sold 150 million records.
How do you live life when let's say you're 30, I don't even know what millennial, 30-somethings, 20s, 30 to 10. All you know is 10 years of artistry. I don't understand that. Now they're saying that Eminem is the artist of baby boomers. I don't get that. My parents didn't listen to him. I just millennials. One day
Eminem,
you're going to be
no.
old. You're going to be old one day. You're going to be in your 40s. You're going to be in your 50s. All this pretentious bullshit that everybody's so dumb because you were raised in a technical era, in a digital age, doesn't make you that much smarter. It actually makes you artistically and socially, it makes you really, really, really stupid. And I don't understand how you could sit there and only live your life from 10 to 30 or however old you are and never want to backdate and find out what was going on in entertainment or history or anything prior to you being born. Like, that's dangerous to
It's
me.
a vacuum created by social media.
I guess so. I guess so. And as we jump into Parler and as we talk about these things, listen, all this stuff is millennials. It's millennials on the right, it's millennials on the left. Our problem in this country are the people. Okay? It's not so much the government. It's the people, in my opinion. It's millennials on the left who are clueless. It's millennials on the right who are clueless.
Yeah,
They're
where
angry.
is,
What are y'all angry about?
where's the revolution? Like, we are living in times that are fertile
Yeah.
for creative revolution,
You can
creative
There are
explosions.
people making millions of dollars on YouTube making skits up. And I give those people a ton of credit. They have a lot of talent. You're in a well, Justin Bieber was found on YouTube. I mean, you're living in a time where you
Post
can,
Malone too, yeah.
yeah, Post Malone too. So you're living in a time where you have more exposure than any of us ever did to
And you don't
be
have to wait
an
for somebody else to anoint you.
no. Listen, bands back in the day and musicians back in the day had to wait for somebody to come along and think that they were great enough to put some trust into them and put some faith into them. You guys don't even have to do that. And you
I
make
wonder
up
what would
sea
happen if you
shanties.
took Pink Floyd's Animals and just gave it to some millennials and just said, "This is a brand new band. Take the name Pink Floyd off of it and see what happens."
I think you should do that. I think what we need to do, I think record companies and these bands, I think what they need to do is I think for a month, play old stuff on new radio stations and on, Spotify and all that. Put it all into the top 40s. I guarantee you the kids will love it. They'll go, "Hey man, this is great stuff, man."
People
And
will
I'd be like,
naturally
"Yeah, look,
gravitate to what is good.
yes,
It's been
people
proven
like
over and
what's
over
good."
again. Yeah,
And it's part of the reason
but
why
they'll
you
also
people are
like what's
fucking
bad.
miserable. Well, a few people like, well, it'll be a disagreement. Like some people will say, um, well, some people will say Led Zeppelin was bad. Some people will say Pink Floyd was bad. It took me a long time to get along with Pink Floyd. And now I really appreciate them, but it took me a long time. It took me a long time with the Beatles. I'm always behind, but I am. I'm so bad behind. Uh, I went through this phase where it's like, it's not cool, man. It's not, if it's cool and everybody likes it, then I don't like it. It's dumb. And then you realize later on as you adult, you go, wow, that was really great stuff that I missed on. And I really should have not been such a pretentious prick.
Does that sound familiar?
It sounds familiar, but at the same time, what I was saying was, oh, well, you know what that sounds like? That sounds a lot like Led Zeppelin, or that sounds a lot like Van Halen, or that's because I was this purist of older music. I liked Pink Floyd. You know what drove me crazy about Pink Floyd was I had friends that really got into the Wall.
Yeah.
Everybody goes to the Wall in their drug phase or whatever, and I just hated it. I hated it. Let's watch the Wall. Please don't. Please don't put it on. Please don't put it on. You know what I mean? And I think the Wall killed me for Pink Floyd. But now that I'm older and I'm just listening to the music, I really, really enjoy it. I think Roger Waters is freaking
Oh
one of the
God,
greatest
yes.
guitarists to ever live. I mean, I
You
can say
mean
that now. His
Gilmore?
solos are beautiful. Yeah, his
You mean
solos are
Gilmore?
unique and beautiful. Yeah, absolutely. But it took me a little while, but I can say that. But
Is there a
what I
better
can't,
song than "Wish You Were Here"? I mean,
that's incredible.
yeah, it's
But I
beautiful.
just don't understand where you get off. I mean, we already deal with millennials, and I'm not just saying liberal millennials. I'm saying both sides. we're dealing with millennials who are basically telling everybody to shut up and they're stupid and nobody wants to hear what they have to say. Yet this is the most depressive, unenergetic, unenthusiastic, uninspiring group of people on the planet who can't get out of their own way and just explore anything beyond their life. And they live in this capsule and they believe only what exists in this capsule. And somehow sea shanties got in
The
and
lack of
rock and roll did not.
curiosity, lack of curiosity. I mean, don't you want to go back and see what led to what and why this happened? And
Well, I mean, like,
that's fascinating to me.
Look, Post Malone, for his credit, goes out there and does like this live version of Nirvana songs, and he did an incredible job. I don't know if you saw it.
Yeah, it was really good
during the COVID thing. It was amazing, and people were typing on the feed like, "Oh, this is going to be a great song on his new album," or "This is a real departure from normal Post Malone. I don't know what he thinks he's doing." What are y'all? What are you smoking?
How do you miss Nirvana?
do me a favor and listen to anything before you were born, and just do me that favor. Watch a movie from before you were born. And I don't mean sit around and watch it with other people so that you can be really smart and better in the room. You can be the smartest guy in the room or girl in the room and be like, this is done. I want you to watch it by yourself. I want you to listen to it by yourself. I really think that we could save a lot of depression if a lot of these fools would just sit down and listen to something outside their capsule. That's all I'm saying. And you sit around and you think all these jobs that the baby boomer. Now, listen, I've got my own problems with baby boomers. I mean, I'm a Generation Xer. Wick and I both are.
We're the only ones with good taste anyway.
Yeah, right. We see the problems with baby boomers. I mean, it's not lost on us. But the worst of it is just fucking millennials who won't shut up long enough to learn anything about anything other than what's in their little bubble. Please do something about this, because now you're in sea shanties and I'm concerned. Sea shanties, the only thing sea shanties is going to learn are going to lead to is you jumping and working on a cruise ship or you drowning yourself, because that's all those sea shanties are just sad songs about people leaving each other, girls leaving guys, guys killing women and all this other, like it's just please stop. I don't even know what the deal is with TikTok. I don't even own it. God, and all this information that people are getting from social media and stuff, we've talked about it a million times, so we're blue in our face. It's not where you get your news, people. Go to bars and clubs. Do me a favor, when things open back up, go to a bar and club on Friday night and Saturday night. Live like normal people. You'll be a happier person if you're going out to bars and clubs on a Friday night, Saturday night, as long as you have a ride home.
Yeah.
Socialize. Your brain has a need to socialize.
Drop acid and drink moonshine.
You know what? Do that. Try it. It makes a lot of people drop acid and it changes their absolute perspective on life 100%. Right? There are people that will do that. They'll take a drug, mushrooms or what. Here we are. My mom's gonna love this episode. Yeah, this one might be like, no, we didn't do a show this week.
No, yeah, I was feeling poorly.
Yeah, I didn't feel well. Me and Wick did mushrooms and went on live. No, but I mean, I know people that have had that experience with a hallucinogenic drug, and it changed their perspective on life going forward. DMT, Joe Rogan talks a lot about that and all that.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people that have those experiences and it changes their outlook on life 100%. You know what I mean? So yeah, go drop some acid. All millennials need to drop acid. Do us a favor. Now, this is what I want millennials to do. I want you to drop acid and listen to Pink Floyd. And then what I want you to do is watch Dark Side of the Moon, drop acid, and watch Wizard of Oz.
I'll put on Dark Side of the Moon and
Dark Side of the Moon and Wizard of Oz.
You don't even have to drop acid to do that. It's weird.
No, but you should anyway. Millennials, all millennials, they should just drop acid on all millennials and just drop it. It should be a requirement, government requirement. They're gonna have to do a hit of acid. I've never done acid in my life, by the way, but and I also don't have this weird thing about me that I can't explore past my own capsule. Anyway, expand your mind, man. Maybe we need to go back through the 60s.
Yeah.
Maybe we need a drug revolution. You know what? Everything, and that's the other thing too. Like you don't even have to hide your drugs anymore. Y'all just go get it. maybe that's a problem too. Maybe you need to learn how to get drugs and be scared of having them. And that's kind of the adventure. Now you guys, everything's legal, you
Yeah,
know,
you just get it
gotta
prescribed.
hopefully be legal. Yeah. You need to be like scared that you're going to get busted,
Yeah,
that
like,
you need to live a little. Man, y'all live in the safety bubble. That's
oh, I
why
could
y'all are
tell some
scared of
stories.
life. Anyway, well, we won't go there.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's talk a little bit about Parler and freedom of speech, man. That's a kind of a big deal right now that's going on with the millennials and everybody else. What you've followed this Parler story, you followed this situation. I think we both agree that um, the concept of free speech. I saw this and I copied it. The concept of free speech has always been the freedom to express your own ideas. The new speak freedom of speech has become the freedom to state your own facts. And I think
Yeah.
that that's very important as we go into this. Um, let's say it, Wick. I mean, it's been all over social media. I hear you guys. A lot of you are my friends. I love you, but you're just dead wrong. You're not. You don't. You Nobody owes you freedom of speech on social media. Nobody owes you freedom of speech on Twitter. Nobody owes you freedom of speech on Facebook. Um, However, you did find an outlet in Parler. And I'm going to say it. I don't think people on Parler are all terrible. I know people who went to Parler. I thought about it just because I thought, well, I'm going to jump ship to the new thing, and hopefully Facebook will die. But then I was like, you know what? I looked at the app and I was like, you know what? I don't want to be in a world of just conservatism. I didn't know that's really what this was. I like to keep my mind open to all kinds of ideas, and I don't want to get myself stuck in that. Um,
Nothing worse for you than echo chamber. Nothing.
and I think that's kind of what Parler was. And I'm not saying it was bad, but what's your outwardly view on Parler before all this stuff happened? I mean, I know you knew people that were going to do Parler. What was your opinion on Parler originally before all
Well, I
this?
think the worst thing you can do is be in an echo chamber of your own beliefs and not
Mhm.
listen to the argument against your position. I think that's um, one of the worst statuses to have. I think
Yeah. And that's definitely, I mean, was that your view of Parler when it started?
that's my, anytime. And if there was a liberal version of that, if there was a moderate version of that, I think it's a bad idea.
But no, I agree. But what I'm saying is that when you first heard this Parler thing was happening, before all of this Capitol riot stuff, when everybody was going to Parler because they conservatives felt like Facebook was keeping them shut down, and this started from Facebook suddenly saying, "Hey, look, we're going to fact check your memes and your videos and all these other things. Basically, memes is really what it was. We're going to fact check your memes and we're going to deem them a lie or a truth or whatever. And if it's a lie, we're going to remove it. If it's truth, we're going to leave it up." And a lot of conservatives felt like every time I post a freaking meme, you're taking it down. Although I feel like I've got to look at all these liberal memes and nobody does a damn thing about them. And so they said, "Hey, you know what? Let's go to our own place where we can be our own people. Let's create our own village and let's
Right.
make it Parler." Right. So my question was really, when this first began and you started seeing people go to Parler and talking about leaving Facebook to go to Parler, what was your thought on Parler to begin with? Did you think it was just some fly by night thing? Did it concern you? Was it something you're like, hey, this could be a good thing for them? What did you think?
I thought it was probably fly by night. I saw some people mentioning it on Facebook, but I didn't think it would. I thought it would be a reaction to the election, and then it would fade out, which it still could.
Yeah, I got to be honest. I thought it was too. I thought it was a lot of. I think I could see some justification for it because for me personally, um, being kind of a libertarian, what I call a 21st century libertarian, which means that I don't think the extreme self responsibility level of Ron Paul. I love Ron Paul. I do follow him, so that tell you how I am. But I don't think this whole idea of self responsibility works. I don't think it does in this country anymore. I think it would have 100 years ago. I would have liked to seen a more libertarian government back a long, long time ago. I think it's too late now to expect that because self responsibility is it just doesn't happen anymore. But so I find myself a little bit more leaning to the right of the middle. I'm moderate, probably moderate conservative, although I appreciate a lot of left leaning ideas. You know, I understand health insurance. I understand gay marriage. I don't care about all that much. I
Yeah.
mean, whatever, do what you want to do. I'm more of a do what you want to do as long as you're not hurting somebody else kind of person. That's kind of how I judge everything. Um, so to me, you know, when I start seeing people go to Parlor, I was like, okay, I think the tribe is moving to another part of the island.
Mm.
And this is a good thing for them because they feel like they're being subjective. Now, I think, I think if you read into it a little bit more and you do your research, it's funny to me how many times I've researched, by part or you know, is Facebook liberal? Is Facebook conservative? It's hilarious to me how many people have written articles and blogs and whatnot that say Facebook is owned by the conservative groups, and the article two down will say how Facebook's liberal policies force conservatives to not have a voice. It's absolutely amazing to me how much it almost splits down the middle of the anger towards Facebook, where liberals feel like they're shut down and Republicans feel like they're shut down. And this began to give me the idea that, well, maybe Facebook isn't itself really as bad as everyone's making out to be. When you have both sides that are really angry and accusing the other of owning Facebook, it seems like your policies are probably working pretty good.
They're probably working. Exactly.
You know, but you know, I understand Parlor. I understand people wanting to go there. Now, we don't. We know that you're not guaranteed free speech, and I think people need to understand that social media does not give you this right to freedom of speech.
No, the Constitution protects
Right.
you against government censorship,
Right.
not
So
corporate censorship.
yeah. So all these people are upset, and when Trump gets banned from social media, um, it makes Parler extremely popular. I think they had 10 million downloads after all that happened because everybody wanted to go someplace where they felt comfortable. And I think that's some of it too. I think people want to be where they're comfortable. But we see on Parler
Do you think they're
something
going
that
to
I
get
do.
bored?
What's that?
Do you think they're going to get bored agreeing with each other?
No, no, I don't think so. I mean, I don't think anyone gets bored with being told they're right. Um, some of us are just not used to it.
Yeah.
Not used to it. But I'm sure that people are completely on board with being told they're right. And everybody wants the approval. Everybody wants to be the smartest person in the room. Um, I just think that with Parler, the danger came from people, you know, getting a little too open about how they felt about things. And I guess the question that we have to pose here is when we're talking about Parler, are these people wrong to be venting how they feel? I don't, I,
No,
it's,
absolutely not.
it's a catch 22. I mean, if I tell you,
If you're
oh,
inciting and organizing violence, that's a different matter.
it's a different matter, but this all it all builds from something, and it builds from a lot of people that agree on one certain tactic or some certain voice of, there's always a voice of quote unquote reason that leads the charge. But you got to have a couple of thousand people that are saying the same thing, that they're fed up. We already know that the election theft was a little misguided, right? I mean, we can admit that maybe it wasn't stolen, you know, maybe there wasn't fraud and all this other stuff, right?
Well, the Republican Party at large has admitted that.
Right. Um, and I said last week, and I got a little heat from people that listen. I applaud a little bit here. Again, Black Lives Matter and the Capitol protesters, not rioters, the protesters, for saying something is wrong and we want to stand up against it and we're going to gather. I think that's really important. And I think with social media, we have to figure out what's the line. If somebody's going to have just a conservative social media platform, where is venting and letting your anger out and saying things that you probably wouldn't say in public, but you're around friends? When does that get to the point where it's dangerous? And where does it get to the point where it's actually therapeutic for people?
I'm not sure there's a therapeutic value in echo chambers.
I think that there is when you're frustrated and you're speaking that frustration. Now, I'm not talking about violence, but you're speaking frustration and people agree with you. People feel your same frustration. I think it is therapeutic. I think it does help people kind of realize they're not alone. And I think Parler did that, and maybe to a point where it got a little out of control, that everybody kind of agreed and agreed and agreed, and they got each other worked up. But here's my issue with Parler being taken down, because that's the next thing. Parler gets taken down. Google will not. Well, you can't find the app on Google. You can't find the app on Apple. Amazon was not letting it show up because of the riots.
Right, and
I get that. And they said, hey, look, all you got to do is moderate, and I do give them a lot of credit for that. But it's chicken egg, because now Parler's saying, well, that's not our thing. I mean, our thing was always that we weren't going to moderate. People can say whatever they want to say there. But I get the feeling that here's where I feel like it's a little unjustified. I understand the rights and I understand the sensitivity of that right now. But if you expand out and you look at the picture, the only thing that Facebook was really monitoring, in my opinion, that I saw, was when somebody would post something publicly, like a meme or a study or a quote or something like that. And Facebook would see it and say, nope, that has
not been corroborated.
That's not been corroborated, blah, blah, blah. But they sure as hell didn't stop a lot of things that I saw being said and chats.
I know.
Okay. And comments. So my question is that I get the feeling that we're doing the right thing by saying, Parler, you got to shut down, because look at we had a hacker that went in, they hacked Parler, and they start putting all these things out there that people in Parler were saying, okay, that's fair. That's fair game. But hold on. I've seen some pretty hateful shit said on Twitter towards conservatives. I've seen people talk about wanting to kill the president. I've seen people wishing that McConnell was dead. I've seen people talk about doing things to Republicans on Facebook and on Twitter. And for some reason, that's okay. But Parler, it's not okay. And we got to shut that down. Facebook, I give credit for just saying, hey, look, these memes and things that you're putting out there as fact are not facts. They're not true. But what I don't see Facebook doing, unless somebody reports it, is say, we're monitoring what you say. Oh, and we don't like that you're saying that you're going to kill Trump. So we wish Trump was dead. So we're going to remove you from our service. I find it a little hypocritical that we're talking about, in one sense, with Parler, and I'm not agreeing with what happened with the people in Parler. Don't get me wrong. I'm speaking from a microscope. I'm pulling a microscope out. Okay. And I'm just looking at it as a full picture. My issue is that how come individual speak is now being pulled out, and we're finding these individual people who said things, and we're investigating in them, and we're ruining them on Facebook, and we're ruining them on the internet, and we're putting their faces all over social media, and this person said this and this person said that. When again, I see some hateful shit on Twitter and Facebook towards conservatives and representatives.
Weren't they doing it on Parler as if it was, or if they were, if it was organizing? Rather, there's a big difference between wishing a president was dead, or wishing a political figure was dead, or anybody for that matter, and making threats.
But it's kind of like the protesting, right? Like we talked about this last week. At what point do you have the right to protest until everybody says, you know what, we need to disperse this before it gets bad? But maybe it never gets that bad. Are we now shutting down people that are protesting and having a right to gather or speak? And if Parler's format is, we're not turning people, we're not going to monitor people. That's Parler's business to me. It's the same as Facebook can do whatever they want. That's fine. If they want to knock Trump off, no problem. I understand where they're coming from. Understand me. I understand them. But I don't see a lot of difference in Parler saying, hey, look, we're going to run things the way we want to run it. And everybody having an uproar about that. But nobody has an uproar about kind of the same attitude that other social media platforms have, which is we run it the way that we see. We see fit. This is how we do it. And I think Parler got a little bit of a bad rake on that. Now, again, I personally think if you're putting that out there and you're putting it out on the internet universe, okay, and people see it, there's consequences to that.
Well, you can't, making right? a verbal violent threat is against the law.
But if you're going to tell me that in private groups, in private discussions, in private pages, that there weren't discussions of violence from the left, especially during Black Lives Matter and Antifa movements, I'm going to call you out and say I think it's a little hypocritical, because I'm quite certain there were some violent exchanges within private groups, pages where private people. Listen, I've been into some of these, not Antifa, but I have been in private groups that are hidden from Facebook, and some things that are said, you just check out. You're like, I'm leaving the page because it's just way too deep for me. On private pages, people are saying whatever they want to say. Facebook's not doing anything about it. So if you have a group of people that literally want to get together and talk about killing President Trump in a private group, you can do it until somebody clicks a button and says, this is dangerous. We want Facebook to take a look at it.
Well, somebody reports it.
Somebody reports it. But if everybody in that page feels the same way you do, nobody's reporting it. So what I'm saying is that overall, we have a social media problem with extremism, okay? And we're only looking at Parler and saying, well, Parler's the problem. I don't think Parler's the problem 100% by itself. I think all of these social media platforms are the problem.
And I would definitely agree with that.
They can solve it by saying, look, we don't do political banner here. When they come, Facebook would do themselves so much of a service to say, listen, we're no longer doing the whole political talk thing. Politics are not part of Facebook. But then you probably lose like 50 million people that are jetting out, and it's be impossible to keep up with that. But where do we draw the line between people talking and people acting? And don't we run the risk that if people are going to talk, that they're always going to be a risk to take some action? What we're trying to do is be preventative here. We're trying to take these preventative measures to make sure that what I consider a lot of millennial conservatives that are extreme Trump people from being able to communicate, because there's a danger that inherently they believe is there. And I think shutting down Parler is a bad idea, because I think now what you've done is you have proven all of those people right, which is they don't want to hear our voice and our frustrations don't matter. So social media will just take away from us, like they did on Facebook and like they did on Twitter and like they did on these. Well, guess what? They kind of did that. And I don't know that this is going to help things. You know, I don't know that you get a whole lot out of this. I guess what I'm saying is that I feel like we're going the wrong direction on trying to solve a lot of the problem. The problem is not shutting people up, right? The problem is constructive grief, constructive frustration, constructive voice. And what you're doing is, in my opinion, Wick, is you're saying, hey, you know what? Conservative people that are angry, you're exactly right. Now we're going to take it away from you one more time. And now what? Now where are we? Guess what? Parler's back. Guess who's hosting Parler? The company that hosts other extreme right websites. And they're saying, hey, look, we got you. Say whatever you want. We got you. We're not going to let you go. We handle our own things. So guess what? Parler's back. And now it's probably in a worse situation than it ever was before, because there's going to be an alternate way to download the app. There's going to be an alternate way to get
Yeah.
it, right? It's the same. The host of the new host of Parler is the same host that does 4chan, right? So, and we know what comes out of 4chan. So you just made it worse, right?
They're going to go somewhere.
They're going to go somewhere. You're going to go somewhere. So when it comes down to it, and you see Parler and you see how all these other social media platforms are handling things. What do you think? Do you think that the shutting down of Parler was a smart decision?
I don't know if it was a smart decision, but I guess they have that right
Right.
as corporations.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you think it proved conservatives, extreme Trump conservatives, right?
That their voices are being shut out.
Yeah.
Well, by corporations they are.
Yeah.
But they're not entitled to that right.
Right. And I think what this is going to do is it's going to force an extreme movement to go more underground. And that's usually a lot more dangerous. Right.
I think it's going to absolutely create a more hostile right.
And I want to ask this to people who are on Parler, because certainly we've got listeners who are on Parler. And I'm not bashing you. I know that there's a lot of great people on Parler. I know personally great people on Parler. I thought about downloading it myself. I mean, I didn't have any issue with it other than I don't know that I just want to hear, an extreme right view on things. But I want to ask people of Parler this. And I want to ask you this. If Parler wasn't about conservative voices and it was about Muslim voices, and it was a site that was created to allow Muslims to discuss their anger towards America and their hatred for all forms of government and their hatred for the representatives and the hatred for our freedoms, American Muslims. Okay. Would you be so cool with that being allowed? Do you think that there's a hypocrisy there, that if there was something called Parler and it was for Muslim Americans who were extremists to speak about their hatred for America and their desire for our freedoms to be ruined and destroyed, do you think that these current Parler conservatives would be okay with that?
Absolutely not. But there's a hypocrisy akin to that on the left, is the left's defense of Islam.
Mm-hmm.
That there are certain latitudes that are extended to Islam that they would never in turn extend to Christianity.
It's an excellent point, Wick, because it's very true. You know what I find interesting too? I remember right after the election of Trump, I don't think I've ever told you this. I had a doctor's appointment right after the election. And I remember I went to the doctor's appointment. It was just for a checkup. And my doctor was a Muslim, and we're doing the whole cough thing, pull your pants down, stand over there and dance. No, does that happen in most No, is that not okay? But
what's your doctor's name?
I can give you his number. He's fantastic. Get on the table, dance, pull your pants down. Get out of camera. That kind of doctor. Is that normal?
Yeah, that's totally normal.
Is that normal?
It's kind of doctors I prefer.
Move to the right. I need you in the camera.
You're out of frame. What?
You can hide your face, is what he said. Yeah. But he was a Muslim doctor, very friendly, but he had a really just stern demeanor. So he comes in, he's like, what are you here for? I'm like, I'm just doing a checkup, making sure I'm good, and everything. All right, well, let me, listen to your heart and everything. So we're talking there. There's this white guy who's middle-aged in a doctor's office with a Muslim doctor, middle-aged. He says, what did you think about the election? And that got tense for about 30 seconds because in my mind, I'm thinking, I really didn't vote for Trump the first time. I didn't vote for Trump the second time. I didn't vote for Trump at this point. Okay. He had just won and swept, everything. And I'm thinking, if I tell this guy the truth that I didn't vote for Trump and I didn't vote for Hillary, which is the truth, my wife will vouch, that drives them nuts. My family drives my conservative family crazy that I don't vote. I vote third party. I always vote libertarian or independent. And I've done it for years. You're throwing your vote away, which, by the way, don't say that to me because you'll get an earful. It drives me nuts. I'm not throwing my vote away. I'm making a point. You're throwing your vote away. Anyway. So I'm thinking, if I tell this doctor I didn't vote for Trump, he's not going to believe me. If I tell him I voted for Trump, is he going to be angry? Because he's a Muslim. I don't know if he's Muslim. He's Middle Eastern. That's not fair. He's Middle Eastern. He was a Muslim after I talked to him. So he says, yeah. He goes, I'm glad that Trump won. And I said, really? And he goes, yeah. And I said, I find that really interesting. And he said, why? And I said, well, just traditionally, we've always kind of had this idea that, Muslims and, several different communities that aren't Christian communities are kind of darlings of the left. And he was like, that's not actually really true. And I said, why? I said, I'm really interested. Why? And he said, they believe in abortion. They believe in gay marriage. We don't believe in any of that.
No.
And for the first time in my life, I thought, okay, hold on. And I said, I've never really thought about that. It's not something that's ever crossed my mind. I've just been told that, no offense, they cornered the market on the Muslim
no,
crew.
They didn't.
And they cornered the market on the Hispanic crew. And, they own all that territory.
No.
He's like, it's not true at all. He said, I don't know anyone that voted for Hillary Clinton out of all of my Muslim friends. And he said, there's a falsehood that their beliefs are our beliefs, and they're not. We actually align a lot closer with the conservative right than we do with the liberal left. And he said, I wish that they understood that they're basically telling us that we've got a spot at their table, but our feelings and views religiously
are going to conflict.
Are going to conflict, and they're not that important. Just because you've opened a seat at the table, that we're just supposed to jump in and sit there and feed and eat what you give us. And he said, that's not true at all. He was like, I'm actually very conservative. And I said, that doesn't bother you that Christian conservatives, and all that, I mean, I'm not saying you're at war here with them, but I'm just saying that typically, it's been kind of a thin line. And he said, no, the basics of Christianity fall right in line with what we believe as Muslims, as true Muslims. He said, there are terrorist extremes that take everything to another level.
Yeah.
But I found that extremely interesting.
But
it makes a lot of sense. And he said Hispanics are the same way. They don't believe in abortion. They don't believe in gay marriage. They're overly Catholic. They're overly religious. That's not their thing. But yet the liberals will contend that they own that block. Maybe they do in voting. I don't really know. But I thought that was extremely interesting. It was
what has always been very disconcerting to me about Islam is that even the most moderate Muslim will lash out at terrorism, Al Qaeda, ISIS, so forth and so on. But if you press them hard enough, they will tell you that while they disagree with it, they believe that Allah's law, God's law, is greater than man's law.
Yeah.
And that even though they don't endorse terrorism, they do not believe a terrorist should be subject to the laws of man.
Right. They believe that there's the laws of God, nature are greater than man.
And there's
we've gotten a little bit opposite here.
How so?
Um, I think that we feel like we're above the laws of nature. We're above the law. We can defeat anything scientifically. Everything is human created, and we can. I think we've just gotten away from the spiritual center of where I think we come from. We're not God necessarily, but just this idea that miracles don't happen. That uh we're we're the creators of our own destiny. There's nothing else ever involved. It's just it feels like it feels like America's gotten more that way.
Perhaps.
You know, where I mean, listen, a lot more people used to consider themselves Christians. 50 years ago. Christianity is definitely falling. Spirituality is falling a good bit.
Well, I've noticed with Christianity in America, at least, it's become more evangelical. It's a different strand of Christianity than I grew up with.
Yeah.
I mean, lasers and explosions, and it's like what? I don't
Well,
understand this.
we were talking about this. I was actually talking about this with a relative, and they had a $750 million mega ball that's going. I don't know if it got one or not. But we bought a bunch of tickets, and we were discussing, 750. You take the payout, you're getting 400 something million. By the time taxes are done, you're talking about $250 million, and we're just going to divide it by three people, 70 million something each.
You're all going to be okay.
Yeah, we're all going to be. It doesn't matter. Give me 20, and I'm good.
Yeah.
But I was asked, what would you do if you won the money and you got 70 million? And I swear to God, this is true. I said, now watch me win it, and everybody will be beating me down. I said, if I won 70 million, I would take 35 million and I would put it up to make sure that my children don't ever have to worry again. We're like the family on Dallas. Nobody's worrying. The other 35 million I'm giving away. And I would think that, and I got a lot of shock from that. I said, you know what? I said, I think if I had 35 million, which I mean, most people could spend in a lifetime, sure. But God, how amazing would it be to give that to people who need it? That would be my new job, giving
Yeah.
out the 35 million. That would be the job I would take on. And I would say, you know what? I'm gonna comb the world looking for great causes to give this money to. Children's hospitals. I would love nothing more than to go to children's hospitals around the holidays. If I had $35 million and give that to families who have these bills and say your bills are taken care of.
You're done.
I don't want you to ever worry again about your child. I think that would be an amazing thing to do. I think it would be amazing to go around and help friends. I said I would always, if you have a mortgage, I would help pay that off. Like medical bills, I'm taking care. Like I think it would be great to spend, and maybe it only take 10 years. Maybe you've spent it in 10 years helping people. But I said I just think that there is a tremendous amount of joy that would come from the burden of winning that much money to say, okay, here's enough to take care of any need
Well,
my family ever has.
well, what's so disconcerting is why somebody would be shocked that you would want to do that.
Well, somebody said I would give 10% to the church. And I was appalled. I said, why? Why? Because they do great. I said, no. I said, we just saw
They can build another wing to their church.
Joel Osteen beg the government
4.44 million
all this money
from a pot that he puts no money in,
that he puts nothing in, and
yeah. Or his church doesn't.
They gave it to him.
Yeah.
Now this is a man who's worth. Let's guesstimate, because I always hate holding up the show looking this stuff up. Joel Osteen's net worth is $40 million. $40 million.
I'm surprised it's so low, actually.
I am too. $40 million. I can guarantee he doesn't give it away. $40 million. And he can't pull 1.4 out of $40 million to save his own church.
4.4.
4.4. He has 40 million. He can't pull 4.4 out and say, I'm going to save my church and the people in it, and I'm going to make sure payroll stays
No.
up. This is my, this, okay. So if you own a business, Wick, and you're going through this COVID situation, you own a restaurant or whatever, and your restaurant shut down. Okay. Where do you think you're pulling money from to keep it going? You're pulling it out of your savings account.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm putting my money in it. We're going to keep it going. I'm going to try to keep it going until I'm broke. There's so many guys. There's so many men and women out there trying to do that right now, of all races and backgrounds, right? Through this COVID thing. Yet he has $40 million of net worth, and he can't find 4.4 to give to his church to keep it. It's his business. It's his own business. And that church pays no tax. Right? So if you're going to give 10% of that, if you're going to give, what would 10% of 70 million be? 7 million?
Yes.
7 million. Thank you. I'm not good with math.
Mm-hmm.
$7 million you're going to give to the church. I said, I think that's a huge mistake. Why don't you take that 7 million and give it out yourself and bypass the churches and give it to these charities that they serve, like, Feed the Children and all that. Just give it directly to the charity. Give it directly to them. Because if you go through the church to do it,
it's going to invest in
itself. It's going to build another church.
Yeah.
Right. Right. And somebody's going to get a piece of it in salary. Right. I think it's a big mistake. So I don't know where we're going with this, but the point
I remember when the hurricanes in Haiti, when it was absolutely eviscerated. I remember I was in LA and I was listening to Christian radio for some kicks, and they were talking about how they were, organizing a group to go down there and to hand out Bibles.
That's not what they needed.
Water and food is what they needed.
Yeah. Listen, I have my faith. I do. I pray every night. It's also why I stay away from an organized religion. I don't like organized religion for that reason. I mean, there's other things you can do other than hand out Bible and try to convert people. I'm a big believer when it comes to religion. We get into Parler to religion. I'm a big believer that you convince people of the good in your faith by your action. You do things that make people say, I want to be as happy as you are. What makes you happy? Well, I have a balance. I obviously cuss here. I'm not perfect. I don't do all these wonderful things. I've been married 3 times. I'm not perfect. However, I have this balance that I feel like spiritually, in how I express myself, how I live, how I enjoy things, how I view problems, how I view extreme circumstances, and even, relaxed circumstances, how I view everything, I believe comes from the balance that I have spiritually.
You know what Lincoln said, what Abraham Lincoln said when asked about his religion, what his beliefs were. He said, when I do good, I feel good.
Yeah. And so that's always been my take, is that I had this friend that got married, and he didn't get married traditionally. He got married in some type of Wiccan ceremony. He's non-religious, atheist. I don't do a lot of converting. That's not what I do. But I talk to him like I would anybody. And I'm not overly into script. I couldn't tell you a scripture. I couldn't. I mean, it's just me. But I remember we were talking about it, and he got married. And he got married in this Wiccan ceremony. And I wasn't invited. And I said, how'd the wedding go? Good. It was really good. I was like, just curious why I didn't get an invite. I would have loved to have seen you get married. Well, I know that you're a pretty spiritual person, and you've told me that, you're a faith and, you're a Christian and everything. And he said, I just didn't feel like you'd be comfortable there. And I said, I just want to tell you, I said, my faith is mine. And if I believe it to be as strong as it is, if I believe my bond with God or my God is as strong as I believe that it is, I can walk through that ceremony, sit down and enjoy it, have a handshake and eat with you.
Yeah,
I don't have to worry about demons entering my body and possessing me and
I'm
turning
pretty
me
sure that's what
from
Jesus would have done too.
yeah. I don't look,
Yeah.
I don't what are they going to have a Wiccan ceremony? You guys are going to burn some goat weed and all of a sudden demons are going to enter my body and turn me from what I
God, I
believe.
would hope so.
I mean, was that your plot?
Yes. Why else
But
would you go to a Wiccan wedding?
right. Or what was it, like the appetizers were like Ouija boards? I mean, what? We're gonna sit down and wait for our brunch and do Ouija board stuff. I
Talk
mean,
about Stonehenge.
yeah. I mean, it was like if my faith is as strong, and this is for other Christians too. If your faith is as strong as you believe that it is, then you walk through fire, man. You do whatever you got to do for what you believe. But I'm not going to run away from knowing people and getting to know them. And I don't care if you're Wiccan. I've had several conversations with people who are not Christian, who I hope when the conversation was done, they maybe didn't even know I was Christian because I'm not there to convert anybody. That's not my job. My job is to be who I am. And if they see some joy and happiness and peace in me, maybe they go, hey, I'm kind of curious why he's that way. Why are you that way? Well, spiritually, I feel like I'm balanced. In what way? But
I
it's a
always assumed it was your worship of Satan.
it was back when I was younger, but I've turned away from that. No, I just think that I think when you're right spiritually, you have a peace. Um, and you have little worry. I mean, I have worries. I just don't take them on. My wife will tell you she stresses hard. I don't. I just think, I have my faith. I think I do my job of what I'm supposed to do to fix a problem. I don't just sit back. But I just hope the main point being is I hope that through my actions and through my demeanor that people are like curious, like, hey, I'm kind of curious how he's so relaxed about this, or how he can show up to a Wiccan wedding and it doesn't bother him. Oh, so and so told me, you were a Christian. Is this weird for you? Not at all.
No,
Not at all.
it's
Not
kind
at
of
all.
awesome.
Yeah, it's cool. I think it's interesting. I love learning about things. I love learning about things. And I love learning about whatever you do. And if you scribble on paper and call up a demon, I don't really want to be involved, but whatever works for you. But I know if I judge you, if I know that I pass judgment on you and I know that I'm a pretentious prick about it, then I know that what I've done is I've definitely turned you off. I've proven every aspect of what you think about faith to be correct. I don't want to be the person that proves that right. I want to be the person that says, you say, hey, man, I kind of think your demeanor, I think your demeanor is interesting. I think the way you're handling things is really neat. How are you at peace all the time? Or, yeah, well, I've got a spiritual balance. What do you mean by that? And then it opens up the dialogue. But anyway, so I don't know how we get here. I think we're basically talking about just Olstein getting his money and all that stuff. But
Yeah.
and what you would do
Well, I
with
mean,
with the
Olstein
money.
is. I mean, I don't think there's
And I
any
don't,
serious religious scholars that don't think he's antithetical in every possible way to the teachings of Jesus Christ of Nazareth.
sure, but I think it went back to what you were saying originally to tie it back up. You're going to give all that money if you win the Mega Millions, and these people are going to buy lasers and smoke, and all of a sudden everybody's got new instruments in the
Yeah.
chorus, and they all have new outfits,
Blow
and
it
the
on a
guy's
new
got a new
organ.
wing. Yeah, they're going to blow it. And I hate to be that way, but it's exactly the truth, of what why I wouldn't give it to the church. But anyway, I think if you won that, it'd be kind of cool to give it away to people that needed it. But going back to Parler, we got off on the Muslim thing. I don't think that Christians would be so cool about Muslims having their own Parler type of thing where they're speaking freely. And I think that that's something that they need to note, that there are other people that are going to look at this and say it's
Well, the free speech protects. Well, Christopher Hitchens was famous for saying that his defense of free speech meant that he had to more vigorously defend free speech for somebody that held an opposing position.
Right. I mean,
That's the true um, that's the true spirit of the First Amendment and free speech in general, because it was really born in during the French Revolution.
yeah. I mean, I think with the issues with freedom of speech, you don't have it on social media platforms. Do you need it on social media platforms? Maybe. But I think Parler in itself, if we're going to say that all these other formats and platforms have the right to shut down people saying what they want, I think we have to say the same thing, that Parler has the right to allow people to say what they want. Um, and I think too,
And they
there
should
are
until it crosses the line.
right, and I think there are. I mean, for every, I would like to think for every action's a reaction. So there, there may have been people in Parler that are being ignored that were the voice of reason and saying, "Hey, look, these are not the things that we represent. These are not the things that we should be doing. What we should be doing is focusing on the next election and getting our representatives back in." So I think you also kind of quelled the people that were probably taking more responsible stances on Parler and saying,
That's
look,
what I was suggesting earlier. When is it going to eat itself? Are the moderates and the radicals going to come to blows on Parler?
yes, yeah. I
But I'm
mean,
not sure. I'm not sure any moderates are going to Parler.
no. I mean, I consider myself a moderate,
Moderate
right?
conservatives.
But
Yeah.
as soon as I pulled it up, I was like, yeah, just like it's gonna be like led by Sean Hannity and all these people, and I don't like to get myself sucked into that any more than I would want to do it if I was a liberal and be like, oh, okay, so now I've got to listen to Rachel Meadows and everybody else cram stuff down. I don't know that I want to hear that, but this is the thing: that people seek it out. And look, if there was an MSNBC, I consider MSNBC and Fox on opposite ends of the spectrum. If MSNBC comes out with this platform that they would run, where all liberals can come in and say whatever they want, I think you'd have the exact same problem that you have with Parler, and if Fox News was to do one, because everybody is listening to what they want to listen to, and everybody's hearing what they want to hear, and I think
That's
it's
the
just
problem.
feeding
There's
into
no
the problem.
objectivity.
No,
And
no.
people can't agree on facts anymore. Objectivity is the relentless search for the truth, even if it leads you to unwelcome conclusions.
That's beautifully said. Well said. Yeah. I
Oh, that
mean,
was again, that's Christopher Hitchens, but
you can claim it.
yeah.
You just claim it. It's like in The Office when when Michael had on the blackboard behind him, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, and it was you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Wayne Gretzky in parentheses in quotations, and then had his name underneath that. So it was you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Don't
Wayne
take.
Gretzky by Michael Scott.
Right.
Like he had Wayne Gretzky in the quote. That's what was great about it.
No, Christopher Hitchens. I can't.
You
I
can you
can't
can, you
claim
can
him.
own it.
He's one of the greatest thinkers of. It's a shame he's dead. If he were alive right now, he would be a cherished voice.
Yeah, I just think that it's like anything now too. I mean, social media is so aggravating because I'm a big time fantasy football player, and there's fantasy football Facebook pages I go on, and I go on there and I chat, and I might answer, somebody's asking a question, I might give my opinion, and then for the next 52 minutes, I'm bombarded with people who disagree with me. And I'm like, okay. And by the time we're done, I've just realized I've said, you know what? We simply don't agree with that. We don't agree on this point. I feel this way, you feel that way. It's not a big deal, man. We're going to wake up tomorrow and it's going to be okay. It's like,
Yeah, it's like
what is this deal with everybody on Facebook trying to prove that their point is correct or their opinion
I'm
is the
right or
right
everybody
one?
dies.
Right. And you're just wrong. And they are going to fight to the death to prove you wrong. And I found myself kind of getting dragged into that early on, where I was like, you know what? I've got to prove I'm right. It's my ego. No,
Yeah.
you're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. And then you go later, you find out you were wrong, and you're like, shit. Well, I'm not going to go back on there and tell them I was wrong.
No, never.
I think
Never admit it. Never admit it.
I'm not going to say anything now. I'm just going to avoid that person from here on out. But no, I mean, you know, it's this idea that you have to be right. Your opinion has to be right. And I think that's a lack of socialization, in-person socialization, you know, where your identity is
Well, how
completely digital.
latently hostile we are.
Yeah, it definitely brings out the worst in you because there's no consequences. And maybe that's what we see with Parler too, is that I don't think that any of these social media sites are excused. I think they're all situations where they're set up where there's no consequences. And you know, I mean, you can go to Facebook jail or Twitter jail. I mean, we saw that happen with you know, Twitter and Trump and all that. But people eventually come back. You know, you kind of have a take a time out and then you come back and you're just as bad as you were before because the consequence was a timeout,
Right.
which I find doesn't really work with children because they just get out of timeout and then they're just a bigger pain in the ass than they were before. Especially, you know, if you're weak on timeout and you're like, yeah, just come out. Yeah, you
Just
put kids in timeout. I put my kids in timeout and they scream and cry the whole time they're in timeout. And I'm like, you know what? Just get fucking out of timeout because you're you're making me miserable for being in timeout. Like you're in timeout, but I'm unhappy. You know?
So you're doing it for yourself.
Right. I'm like,
Of course,
just
yeah.
get out of timeout. Just come out. I mean, if you're gonna scream, just get out. And it's probably the worst parenting thing, but it's like I feel like I'm being punished for punishing my children.
Well,
And it's
you
like
are.
I am. And it's like, no, you know. So I think it's a little bit like that with Facebook. You know, you get a timeout, it's no big deal. People come back and they're just as vicious as ever. But I think there's just no consequence. But we're seeing a little bit on Parler now that there is consequence, especially for those that were involved in the riots. And I guess I guess I guess you should have some. There should be some consequence to um, violence for sure. But I didn't. I don't know. I'll say this. I don't know that I felt like social media was as big on capturing those rotten scoundrels from Black Lives Matter marches like they were on this one. And I'm curious as to why. It felt like there was a protection.
This is more political, I think, in terms of it's the capital.
I feel like I feel like I feel like liberals protect their own a lot better than conservatives do. I feel like conservatives are a lot more about personal responsibility. For instance, I was telling you the other day, it's like I sent you something. This was not the other day; it was probably a couple of months ago. And I sent you something. It's like, look at the comments. So it was a white guy who had gotten killed by a police officer. Um, and every one of the white, well, I won't say white. No, I'll say every one of the conservative people you could tell were like, you know what? You don't run from the police. You don't do this. You take responsibility. This guy shouldn't have been running. This guy shouldn't have been doing that. And every one of the liberal people were defending the person. Like, well, you don't know the truth of this and you don't know. And he probably was doing it. I feel like on the right, there's a lot more self-responsibility where they expect, even when their own makes a mistake, that I feel it's a little bit more called out on the carpet, where I feel like the left protects it a little bit more, where they kind of make excuses for not throwing other people on the
I
left.
think it's equal.
You think it's equal?
I think that's just human nature.
It probably is human nature. But I got to be honest. Since these protests that happened at the Capitol, there's a lot of conservatives I find that have absolutely publicly denounced this, where they said, you know what, listen, this is not the way you do it. I had conservative friends left and right that basically said these riots were a horrible way of settling this situation, that this is not how you handle it. This
No,
is not
absolutely not.
a good look. It's not how we do things, blah, 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 blah. I didn't, I saw a lot more defense of the Black Lives Matter protest from the left about this, where it was more justified. And I find that dynamic to me a little interesting. Now, my capsule of Facebook, to be fair, is small and a large scope. There, you might be able to say, "Hey, look, you know, a lot of my liberal friends were denouncing Black Lives Matters protesting," but I just didn't get the vibe from my liberal friends that they were saying, listen, this is not the way we need to do this. I heard that from people on the right. But then when the Capitol riots happened, I heard a lot of my right friends say, this is not the way we need to do this. It's an embarrassment. Embarrassment was mentioned a lot.
Yeah.
And I find the dynamic kind of an interesting twist. And maybe that's why conservatives have this idea that, Facebook is not, it basically treats us differently than it treats the left, and people on Facebook are posting these things from Parler about these people that were involved in the protest and showing their faces and everything like that, and the arrests that are being made. And I just didn't feel like that happened a lot with Black Lives Matter's protesting, where people were getting called out for doing damage on video, and there was plenty of people. The only time that it felt like we really heard about it was when that white kid shot.
Right.
I don't remember his name. I apologize, but where he shot, whether it was, I guess they decided it was self-defense. I didn't follow that closely as I should have. I haven't heard anything about it, so I imagine they did let him go. He shouldn't have been there with a gun in the first place, but I saw what happened, and this was just a disaster waiting to happen.
Right.
On both sides of this thing. But it just didn't seem like until somebody did something in their view wrong to the Black Lives Matter protesters, did anybody want to speak up about it?
Well, I also, when the Charlottesville incident happened in 2016, there was very little from the right condemning that.
That may be true too.
Yeah, I think it's human nature. Like, our side can do it, but you can't do that.
Yeah, and
because that's when you do
valid.
it. When you do it from a human nature standpoint, that's a threat to me.
And
when my side does it, it's not a threat to me.
When that kid shot up the black church in South Carolina, I call him a kid. If you're going to carry that out,
no, I was talking about when that guy plowed into the protesters.
But I am saying that they walk him out with a bulletproof vest, and I do see a difference in how we handle black and white protesting crime. I definitely see the difference. I mean, we definitely see it. I mean, we saw the Capitol stairs when Black Lives Matter was protesting, and we saw it when conservatives were there. There was not the military, hangout that it was when Black Lives Matter was there. We do tend to treat both of these profiles differently, and that's very fair. But I don't know where we go from here, because now the Parler people are going to have their extreme right host that's going to take care of it, and they're going to be back on. And my question now is, where do we go from here? Do we expect Parler to self-censor itself? Because it's obvious they're not going to moderate. Or they would have done that in favor of getting Google and iTunes to.
They're not going to do it, and I find it. What's kind of been lost in the last month is you don't hear nearly enough about the Russian hacking scandal.
Yes,
they hit everything. I have a gentleman I know is a defense contractor in Washington, and he lives half the time down here. And he was mortified by that situation. That in a year's time, that's going to have a much greater effect on our lives than what is going on with Parler right now, what is going on with Black Lives Matter, with all the social.
Do you think it's buried?
I don't think it's buried. I just don't think it's hot news.
Do you think
they hit the DOJ, they hit the DOD, they hit Google, they hit everybody, and it was a clear shot across the bow from Vladimir Putin.
Yeah. And we know that there was some involvement in the 2016 election.
Yeah, they definitely we know that now. Yeah.
What we know, before conservatives get upset that listen to the show, we know that I don't believe that Trump was personally involved with anything like that. I don't think Hillary Clinton was involved with it. But I think they certainly bought ads, promoted, tried to manipulate through Facebook how people voted, and they were successful. They bought a lot of ad space. They pushed a lot of agenda. And they did want
And
Trump.
to be brutally honest, this division is something that he has sown and he benefits from. He is the beneficiary of it.
He's the biggest beneficiary of the division in America is Putin.
The East is trying to minimize our power on Earth,
Mm.
and that's China and that's Russia
It
combined.
makes you wonder why it's so important in a world where, okay, yeah, we did drop a nuke on Japan. Yeah, we'll take that. But it makes you wonder why there's a need for world dominance.
It's human nature,
It's just
power,
human nature. Yeah, I guess.
getting the biggest piece of meat after the hunt.
I mean,
It's
Russia
really
is
what it boils down to.
Russia's huge. They got a ton of land. They got a ton of
Mhm.
acreage. They're. I mean,
And this is
Putin has his own thing. He's running his own crooked situation there. Um, it's almost like he's reborn the Cold War, or he's trying to rebirth it. I know he's a KGB guy.
he's KGB to the core. Yeah.
Yeah, to the core. Um, I just don't understand what the fall of America does for him or what the fall of Russia does for us. It's almost like this weird standoff where I don't see a benefit either way.
To be the
But
preeminent superpower.
yeah, but you're already a superpower.
Yeah, but you have to have more.
What are you going to do? Like, you're going to just build a really big bridge that goes across the Atlantic so you can, well, I guess you could do it from Alaska, where you can just walk across to your
It has
other
been
part of
with
your
us
country.
it's been with us since the dawn of time, from the
Why would you?
Mongols, from Genghis Khan to
Yeah, but
Alexander the Great to
those, if you'd have told those people that they have to sail 30 days to get to a land to conquer, they would probably be like, you know what? We'll just conquer what's in front of us.
the Vikings did it.
The Vikings did it, but I still think that they sailed relatively close to where they were coming from. I
Well,
don't
they
think
came
that
here. I think there's archaeological proof that they were
really.
here now first.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know all that stuff.
Yeah.
How did they do?
They did a lot of, well, there was probably a lot
Well,
of
they got
raping.
Minnesota, right? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, they just came here to set up an NFL franchise.
Right.
That
They
was
got
that was their
Minnesota.
entire
The
goal.
Vikings were able to defeat us and take Minnesota.
Eventually, there's going to be a sport that doesn't exist yet that we're going to
Right.
be a big part of.
Right. No, I mean, I think the hacking thing is very scary because we do everything so much online, and I'm not sure that for being one of the most advanced countries, if not the most advanced country in the world, that we're really as secure as we believe we are.
Well, that's the
Um,
new warfare, and that's the new
yeah,
tradecraft.
yeah,
And we have to really, and this kind of harkens back to what we were talking about last week in terms of, there's not going to be boots on the ground. There's not going to be, Russia's not going to come here, China's not going to come here and storm a beachhead. It's going to be a cyber attack. And we have to restructure our defense ideology around that fact.
Also, did you hear the story that China's buying up a ton of American farmland?
I've heard that, yeah.
Yeah, they're buying a ton of American farmland, and I'm not going to accuse them of doing anything. They have a lot of people. Maybe they just need the food. I don't know, but they're buying a ton of, and they also own a ton of gold. I think they own most of our gold. And
They own our
apparently
war debt from
yeah,
Iraq.
and they apparently own a ton of construction equipment that's over here too. I mean, there's conspiracy theories left and right, but I mean, it's definitely a fear that we seem to be not paying a lot of attention to. And I think you're right. I think you have all this division. You have Parler, you have Facebook, you have the election, you have Trump, right? You have democratic socialism left. You have all this stuff going on, and maybe a good solid Cold War is what America needs to bring itself back to being one again, like we did in the 80s.
I mean, we're going to get hit. It's only a matter of time.
Oh yeah. We'll be hit in a way that everybody recognizes we've been hit. It won't be a sneaky election thing. It's going to be a lot bigger.
We won't have water.
Yeah.
We won't have electricity.
Your power grid. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then everybody will be like, oh God, like we wasted a lot of time on stuff that really didn't matter.
Yeah.
and we didn't pay attention to the shit that really did matter.
And we're being fools right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody needs to come together. There's a common fear. It's Russia.
And it's very real.
You know, watch Rocky 4, right? Red Dawn. Was it Rocky 4? Was Rocky 4? Yeah. No.
Except that now I fear he's even more dangerous than anybody they had before.
Well, Gorbachev
More dangerous than
wasn't that
Khrushchev. No, Gorbachev wasn't. Certainly Putin is.
Oh, certainly Putin is. But watch Red Dawn, man. Understand the seriousness of what we're dealing with. Be a Wolverine.
Maybe that's what we need. We need something to remind us we're all on the same team.
Yeah, and we've had that happen in our lives throughout this country, where we've all had to be where we've all had to realize we're together, and we haven't had anything in a very long time. And something.
But I thought 9/11 would do it, and it made things worse. It did for a little while, then it made things worse.
Well, I think the war in Iraq, everybody was big on that until it really turned up very little. And yet again, why did we go looking for weapons of mass destruction in Iraq? Because somebody told us. Who told us? Putin. He was like, "Hey, man, they're buried. They buried those weapons of mass destruction. The WMDs are buried out there in Iraq." And Bush was like, "Are you sure?" And Putin was like, "Positive." And we went to war. And what that did, in my opinion, was took the bully in the yard out of the equation and gave room for other bullies to fight over the territory.
Well, what he was trying to do, I'm convinced of this, is he wanted us to get bogged down there.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
And create another Vietnam situation. And he probably got it.
And he got it. He absolutely got it. Yeah. I mean, we're not always the smartest group of people, but then again, when you're spending $732 billion on war is what you seek.
Yeah.
And America is very, very quick to want to do that. And at the end of the day, you're spending more than all the other countries combined. And guess what? They're going to beat you somewhere else, which is right now going to be cyber attack.
Yeah. He wanted Iraq to be to us what Afghanistan was to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Bog us down. This is a situation where we're locked down. Yep.
Because that war is what really brought down the Soviet Union.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, they were weakened by it by far.
Mm-hmm.
So here we are. We're dealing with this. We're dealing with cyber attacks. We're dealing with all that stuff. I'm just curious why this is not a bigger deal than it should be. And I think maybe next week we need to handle that on a full-fledged investigation. Because I think this is really important. And it was something we had planned to do, but then Parler came up and it's like, let's just do Parler. But I think we need to look at what's going on with these with the Russian hacks and what's going. I mean, like you said, Department of Justice has been hacked. Did the Department of Defense get hacked?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they've already tried to rig an election. Some would say they were successful with it. Putin is no longer. We're not dealing with Cuban Missile crises. We're dealing with cyber warfare, and it's really an important thing to kind of talk about because nobody's really talking about it.
No, and that's exactly what he wants.
Yeah. And we've got this division. Don't think that this division on social media isn't a plan by Russia either. I mean,
we're playing right into his hands.
We're playing right into it. Yeah, absolutely. This division and everything that's being called. So we might have to do that next week because we're getting late now. But Wick, is there anything you want to say about anything we've talked about?
No.
Other than your regrets of being here?
Yeah, I always regret that. And I lapse into a shame spiral.
Yeah.
For a good hour.
I just went off on millennials. That should be a fun thing. I can't wait to get blasted for that. But you guys suck. You really do. Grow up a little bit. Life's not fair. Get out of your safety zone.
No, life is not fair.
Listen to music that goes predate it from your birthday. You'll be a much better person. Watch a movie before your birth. You'll be amazed.
What's 2001?
Yeah. Or you know what? When the bars open up, please go out and mingle and go talk to people. It's really important for your mental health. I'm telling you. Wick, we'll be back next week. Might do that hacking thing. I think it's important to do. So if anybody's interested in that, stay tuned for that next week. May have a guest. We'll see. We've invited somebody to come along and talk with us on some things. So we'll see if we get them or not. If not, that's okay. Might be back again, but keep an eye out for that. And we'll see you guys. Don't forget we're on podcast. Don't forget we're on Facebook. Dukes of Blather. Go look us up. We're on Twitter, Dukes of Blather. We're everywhere. Podcast, Podbean, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, all that good stuff. Please download us. Tell your friends. Tell your enemies. Tell everybody. We're a great show for your mom and your niece.
Yeah.
Anybody you can think of. So share us and be a part of it. Send us messages. We'd like to hear back from you guys. Wick, I hope you have a wonderful week, my friend.
Hail Satan.
All right. We'll be good. Everyone, have a good one. Thanks so much
Take
for watching.
care, y'all.
You're listening to the Dukes of Blather. See you.